The candles flickered on Dad's 70th birthday cake as my 8-year-old son Tommy bounced excitedly in his chair at Romano's Italian restaurant. My sister Sarah grabbed the silver knife, cutting generous slices for everyone at our table of 12. She deliberately skipped Tommy completely. "He doesn't need a slice. Save it for real family." Her husband Craig burst into laughter. Mom Patricia leaned over, tapping my arm gently. "Let it go, Bruce. It's just cake." My chest tightened. I had paid for this entire celebration, the $50 cake, half the expensive gifts. Standing slowly, I lifted Tommy protectively. "Enjoy paying for the rest." I walked out carrying my $300 gift bag. The drive home felt like swimming through molasses. Tommy sat quietly in his booster seat, staring out the window at the passing suburban neighborhoods. His small voice finally broke the silence. "Daddy, why was Aunt Sarah mean to me?" I gripped the steering wheel tighter, choosing my words carefully. Sometimes adults say hurtful things when they forget what's important. Did I do something wrong? My heart shattered. "No, buddy. You did absolutely nothing wrong." As we pulled into our driveway, I carried Tommy inside our modest 3-bedroom house. The walls were covered with his artwork from school, family photos from our camping trips, and the official adoption certificate we'd framed together 2 years ago. This was our sanctuary. Tommy had come into my life when he was 6, after I'd fostered him for 2 years following the tragic car accident that took his biological parents. No other family members existed to take him in. At 32, I was single, focused on building my software consulting business, but something about this quiet, resilient little boy changed everything I thought I knew about myself. The adoption process was lengthy and expensive, but worth every sleepless night and legal consultation. My family had seemed supportive initially. Sarah even threw us a small celebration party when the papers were finalized. But gradually, subtle comments started creeping in. Questions about whether I was ready for such a big responsibility, and suggestions that maybe Tommy would be better off with a traditional family. I pushed those memories aside and focused on the present crisis. After tucking Tommy into bed with extra hugs and reassurances, I opened my laptop in the kitchen. The familiar glow of the screen illuminated spreadsheets I knew by heart but rarely examined this closely. For the past 4 years, I had been financially supporting my entire extended family through various automated payments and arrangements. Sarah and Craig's mortgage payment of $2,400 went out automatically on the 15th of every month. Craig had been unemployed for 8 months, claiming the construction industry was too competitive while spending his days playing video games in their basement. Mom's medical expenses consumed $800 monthly. Her insurance coverage had gaps that left her vulnerable to massive bills for her diabetes medication and regular specialist appointments. Dad's retirement pension fell short of their needs by $1,500 each month, which I quietly supplemented through direct deposit to help them maintain their dignity. My younger brother Danny's student loan consolidation required $450 monthly. He'd made poor choices in college, accumulating debt for a degree he never completed. My sister Lisa's daycare costs for her twin daughters totaled $1,200 monthly. Her husband worked irregular hours at a warehouse, and they constantly struggled to afford basic childcare. The grand total of my monthly family support, $6,350. Over the course of a year, that amounted to $76,200 of my income, dedicated to keeping my family afloat financially. Tommy wandered into the kitchen in his dinosaur pajamas, rubbing his sleepy eyes. "Daddy, I can't sleep. I keep thinking about the cake." I closed the laptop and knelt down to his level. "Tommy, do you know what makes a family?" He shook his head, climbing onto my lap in the kitchen chair. "A family is people who choose to love each other every single day. They support each other, celebrate together, and protect each other. Biology doesn't make a family, love does. So we're a real family? We're the most real family I know." He smiled for the first time since the restaurant incident. "Will they stop loving me now?" The question gutted me. "Baby, anyone who stops loving you because of the color of your skin or where you came from never really loved you in the first place. And that's their loss, not yours." After settling Tommy back into bed, I returned to my laptop with a newfound sense of clarity. My fingers moved across the keyboard with surgical precision. I logged into my banking portal and began systematically canceling every automatic payment, every co-signed loan, every financial lifeline I'd extended to my family over the years. Sarah's mortgage auto-pay, canceled. Mom's medical insurance, secondary coverage, removed. Dad's retirement supplement, terminated. Danny's student loan co-signature, revocation notice submitted. Lisa's daycare automatic payment, stopped. Each click felt like cutting a rope that had been slowly strangling my own financial independence and self-respect. I updated emergency contact information, changed insurance beneficiaries, and removed family members from accounts they'd grown accustomed to accessing. By 2 a.m, I had systematically dismantled the entire financial web that had supported my family for years. Tomorrow, they would begin to understand exactly how much their casual cruelty toward my son had cost them. The next morning arrived with an unusual sense of calm. Tommy ate his cereal while chattering about a science project on volcanoes, seemingly recovered from yesterday's humiliation. Children possess a remarkable ability to bounce back from adult failures. My phone buzzed at 7:15 with a text from Danny. "Bro, got a weird notice about my student loan. Call me." I silenced the phone and focused on making Tommy's lunch. Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, apple slices, and a juice box. Normal routine, normal morning. By 8:30, as I drove Tommy to Riverside Elementary School, my phone had buzzed 6 more times. Sarah had called twice, Mom once, and Lisa had sent 3 increasingly frantic messages about her daycare payment being declined. "Have a great day, buddy," I told Tommy as he jumped out at the school drop-off circle. "Remember, you're loved, you're important, and you belong everywhere you choose to be." He grinned and ran toward his classroom, backpack bouncing with each step. The drive to my home office took 20 minutes through suburban Atlanta traffic. My consulting business operated from a converted garage behind our house, equipped with high-end computer systems and multiple monitors for complex cybersecurity projects. My phone continued its relentless buzzing throughout the morning. Voice messages piled up like digital debris. Sarah's first message at 11:47 p.m. last night. "Bruce, I got some weird notification about a payment failure for our mortgage. Can you call me back? It's probably just a bank error." Mom's message at 6:23 this morning. "Honey, I'm worried about my doctor appointment next week. The insurance company called about coverage changes. Please call when you get this." Danny's text at 6:45. "Emergency. Student loan company saying something about default. Help." Lisa's voice message at 7:30. "Bruce, Little Angel's daycare called about payment issues. The twins have to stay home today. What's going on?" I turned my phone completely off and focused on work. A Fortune 500 company had contracted my firm to audit their cybersecurity infrastructure, and the deadline was approaching. Numbers and code provided a welcome distraction from family drama. Around noon, Tommy called from school using the office phone. His teacher, Mrs. Anderson, had encouraged him to check in after noticing he seemed quieter than usual during morning circle time. "Daddy, Jackson asked me to come to his birthday party this weekend. Can I go?" Jackson Martinez had become Tommy's closest friend at school. His parents, Carlos and Maria, owned a small landscaping business and had always treated Tommy with genuine warmth. They never asked intrusive questions about our family structure or made assumptions about our relationship. "Of course you can go. We'll pick out a great present for Jackson. His mom said I could stay for a sleepover after the party if you're okay with it." The contrast hit me immediately. Jackson's family welcomed Tommy unconditionally, while my own biological family questioned his place at our table. After hanging up, I spent the afternoon drafting emails to clients and reviewing security protocols. The work provided structure and purpose, 2 things that felt essential after yesterday's chaos. At 3 o'clock, Tommy burst through the front door with his usual enthusiasm. "Daddy, guess what? We learned about families in social studies today. Mrs. Anderson said families come in all different shapes and sizes, and what matters is love and taking care of each other." That's exactly right. He pulled out a piece of construction paper with crayon drawings. 2 stick figures stood in front of a house with a big sun overhead. "I drew our family," he announced proudly. The drawing showed just the two of us, holding hands and smiling. No extended family members, no complicated relationships. Just Bruce and Tommy, complete and happy. "This is perfect," I told him, and meant every word. As evening approached, my phone remained powered off, but the doorbell provided no escape from family confrontation. At exactly 7:03 in the evening, persistent ringing echoed through the house. Through the peephole, I saw my brother Matt standing on the front porch. At 28, Matt worked as a mechanic at a local auto shop and had always been the most reasonable member of our family. His face looked unusually pale, and he clutched his smartphone tightly. I opened the door cautiously. "Matt? Bruce, we need to talk. I have something you need to see." His serious tone sent warning signals through my system. Matt rarely involved himself in family drama, preferring to stay neutral and focus on his own life. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. Tommy looked up from his coloring books at the kitchen table. "Hi, Uncle Matt." "Hey there, buddy," Matt replied, but his smile seemed forced. I led Matt into the living room where we could speak privately. He sat heavily on the couch and held up his phone screen. "Bruce, I'm about to show you something that's going to hurt, but you need to know what's been happening behind your back." The screenshot displayed a group chat titled, "Frank's Birthday Planning." My stomach dropped as I realized I wasn't included in this family conversation about my own father's birthday celebration. "How long has this group existed?" I asked. "About a month, since Mom suggested we coordinate the party details." Matt scrolled to the beginning of the conversation thread. The messages were time-stamped over the past 4 weeks, and each one felt like a dagger. "Sarah. Can't believe Bruce thinks that kid belongs at family events. Craig. Tommy's not even the same race. So obvious he's not really ours. Lisa. Why does Bruce get to play daddy with a stranger while we struggle financially? Danny. That adoption money could have helped all of us instead of going to some random kid. Mom. Boys, we should be grateful Bruce helps us financially. Sarah. Mom, he only adopted to look good at work. Diversity points for his business. Craig. Bet he claims big tax benefits too. Smart business move. Dad. Kid seems nice enough, but family is family, and blood matters. Sarah. Let's make sure Tommy knows his place at the party. Nausea overwhelmed me as I read message after message of casual cruelty toward my son. These people had smiled at Tommy, brought him Christmas presents, and pretended to care about his well-being while privately discussing him like an unwanted burden. Daddy, what's diversity points? I spun around to find Tommy standing in the doorway, having overheard our conversation. His innocent question shattered something inside my chest. Matt's face crumpled with regret. I'm sorry, Bruce. I tried to defend you both in the chat, but they kicked me out of the group after I called them out. How long has this been going on? The chat? Just this month. But the attitudes? Probably since the adoption was finalized. Matt showed me additional screenshots revealing the depth of their planning. They'd coordinated to make Tommy feel excluded at family events, discussed ways to convince me that adoption was too expensive and unfair to the rest of the family, and even debated whether I should consider changing Tommy's status from adoption to temporary guardianship to save money. There's more, Matt said reluctantly. He scrolled to a second set of screenshots showing a newer group chat titled Operation Get Bruce Back. The messages were from this morning, after my family had discovered their financial support had been terminated. Sarah, he's being dramatic. He'll cave when he realizes we actually need this money. Craig, let's all apologize for the cake thing and promise to include the kid more. Dad, Bruce has always been soft-hearted. A little guilt will bring him around. Lisa, what if we bring up how much the family means to him? Danny, I'll tell him I can't afford groceries without the loan help. Mom, maybe I should mention my medication costs. The manipulation strategies were laid out like a military campaign. Each family member had been assigned specific emotional appeals designed to pressure me back into financial submission. Tommy approached cautiously, sensing the gravity of our conversation. Uncle Matt, why are you and Daddy sad? Matt knelt down to Tommy's eye level. Sometimes adults say and do things that aren't very nice, but that doesn't mean anything is wrong with you, okay? You're awesome exactly the way you are. I know, Tommy replied with surprising confidence. Daddy tells me that every day. After Matt left with promises to keep me informed about any additional family schemes, I sat Tommy down for an age-appropriate explanation of what we'd discovered. Some people in our family said some unkind things about us, I began carefully. They don't understand that love is what makes a family, not just being born into one. Are they mad because I'm not white like you? The directness of his question took my breath away. At 8 years old, he'd already processed the racial dynamics that adults preferred to ignore or deny. Some people have trouble accepting differences, I admitted, but that's their problem to solve, not ours. Will you still love me? Even if they don't. Tommy, I will love you every single day for the rest of my life, no matter what anyone else thinks or says. You are my son, period. That night, as I tucked him into bed, Tommy asked one final question that revealed wisdom beyond his years. Daddy, are we going to be okay without them? We're going to be better than okay, I promised. We're going to be happy. The following morning brought an escalation I hadn't anticipated. My doorbell rang at 7:03 a.m., jarring me from the first decent night's sleep I'd had in weeks. Through the front window, I could see Matt pacing on my doorstep, phone pressed to his ear and agitation written across his entire body. Tommy was still sleeping peacefully, exhausted from processing yesterday's emotional revelations. I opened the door quietly, hoping to avoid waking him. Bruce, you need to see this immediately, Matt whispered urgently. The family group chat exploded overnight. I poured coffee while Matt pulled up screenshots on his phone. His hands were actually shaking as he scrolled through message after message of family members revealing their true feelings about Tommy and our relationship. They think I'm still blocked from the main chat, Matt explained, but Lisa added me back accidentally when she created a new thread. I've been watching them plan their next moves. The screenshots revealed conversations that had been happening parallel to the birthday party planning, dating back almost 6 months. My family hadn't just been tolerating Tommy. They'd been actively strategizing ways to undermine our bond. Sarah, Bruce is getting too attached to that kid. It's not healthy. Craig, we should find ways to remind him the kid isn't really his. Mom, maybe if we emphasize Tommy's differences more, Bruce will realize this isn't working. Dad, the boy needs to understand his place in this family. Lisa, what if Tommy decides he wants to find his real family when he gets older? Danny, Bruce is wasting money on that kid that could help all of us. But the most devastating messages had been sent just hours ago, after they realized I'd cut off their financial lifelines. Sarah, time for nuclear option. I'm calling Child Protective Services. Craig, what would you report? Sarah, single man, no family support, adopted kid showing behavioral issues. Lisa, that's too far, Sarah. Sarah, he's choosing that stranger over his real family. Someone needs to reality check him. Danny, maybe CPS visit would wake him up. Dad, now hold on. We don't want to hurt the boy. Mom, Sarah, please don't involve outside agencies. Sarah, I already called. Told them I was concerned about my nephew's welfare. The coffee mug slipped from my hands, shattering against the kitchen floor. Matt looked up from his phone with genuine fear in his eyes. Bruce, she actually called CPS yesterday evening. I have the screenshot of her confirming it. My blood turned to ice water. Sarah had weaponized the child welfare system as retaliation for my cutting off her mortgage payments. She was willing to traumatize Tommy and potentially destroy our family to maintain her financial convenience. What exactly did she tell them? I managed to ask. Matt showed me Sarah's detailed message in the family chat. Told CPS worker that Bruce seems overwhelmed by single parenting, Tommy has been acting out at family events, and we're concerned about stability in the household. Mentioned that Bruce recently cut off all family relationships abruptly, which suggests possible mental health crisis. Each word felt like a physical blow. Sarah had crafted a narrative designed to make me appear unstable and Tommy appear neglected. She'd turned my protective decision to remove us from their toxicity into evidence of mental health problems. There's more, Matt continued reluctantly. She told them you've been isolating Tommy from family, spending excessive money on adoption-related expenses, and showing signs of attachment disorder. Attachement disorder? She Googled psychological terms to sound credible. Said you're overly protective and unable to maintain healthy family relationships. Tommy's footsteps on the stairs interrupted our conversation. He appeared in the kitchen doorway wearing his favorite Superman pajamas, hair sticking up in every direction. "Daddy, why is there glass on the floor?" "I dropped my coffee mug, buddy. Stay back while I clean it up." As I swept glass shards into a dustpan, my mind raced through the implications of Sarah's false CPS report. Social workers would need to investigate any claim involving child welfare, regardless of the motivation behind it. They would interview Tommy, examine our home, review my finances, and scrutinize every aspect of our relationship. The irony was devastating. My family's rejection of Tommy had forced me to protect him by cutting contact, and now they were using that protection as evidence that I was unfit to parent him. "Uncle Matt, are you staying for breakfast?" Tommy asked, hopefully. Matt glanced at me uncertainly. I nodded, needing time to process this new threat while maintaining normalcy for Tommy. "I'd love to, buddy. What are we having?" "Daddy makes the best pancakes on Saturdays." As I mixed batter and heated the griddle, Matt continued sharing screenshots quietly. The family's manipulation had evolved into something genuinely sinister. "Craig, CPS investigation will show Bruce can't handle this." "Sarah, exactly. Then Tommy gets placed with a proper family." "Lisa, you mean like us?" "Sarah, we could provide stable two-parent household." "Danny, plus financial support from Bruce would continue if Tommy lived with Sarah." The final piece of their plan became crystal clear. Sarah wasn't just trying to punish me for cutting off financial support. She was attempting to gain custody of Tommy to ensure the money kept flowing. In her twisted logic, if Tommy lived with her family, I would be obligated to provide child support while she gained access to adoption subsidies and tax benefits. "Daddy, you look worried," Tommy observed as I flipped pancakes. "Just thinking about some grown-up problems, buddy. Nothing you need to worry about." But internally, I was calculating my next moves. I needed to contact my attorney immediately, document all evidence of my family's harassment and false reporting, and prepare for a potential CPS visit that could happen at any time. Matt leaned closer while Tommy focused on his breakfast. "Bruce, there's something else. Sarah convinced your parents to go along with this plan. They're meeting with a family court attorney Monday morning." "For what?" "Grandparent visitation rights. They want legal access to Tommy even if you cut contact." Their attorney apparently told them that if they can prove you're alienating Tommy from family without just cause, they might be able to get court-ordered visitation. The scope of their coordinated attack was breathtaking. While I'd been focused on protecting Tommy from emotional harm, my family had been plotting legal maneuvers to force continued access to both him and my financial resources. "How do you know all this?" "Lisa feels guilty about the whole thing. She's been forwarding me screenshots because she thinks it's going too far." After Matt left with promises to keep monitoring the family communications, I faced the reality of my situation. My decision to protect Tommy from their cruelty had triggered a full-scale war, with my son's well-being as the primary casualty. But as I watched Tommy happily building a fort out of couch cushions in our living room, I felt something unexpected: clarity. My family's escalation had revealed their true priorities. They valued financial benefit and control over a child's emotional safety. They were willing to traumatize an 8-year-old boy to maintain their access to my income. For the first time since this crisis began, I felt completely justified in every boundary I'd established. The coming legal battles would be challenging, but I had truth, documentation, and resources on my side. Most importantly, I had Tommy's trust and love. Whatever happened next, we would face it together as the real family we'd built through choice, commitment, and unconditional love. The next 5 days unfolded like a carefully choreographed disaster movie. Each family member's financial crisis triggered a domino effect that revealed the true depth of their dependence on my support. Monday morning brought the first wave of panic. Sarah's mortgage company, First National Bank, had a strict 15-day grace period before imposing late fees. Her automatic payment failure on the 1st had been noticed immediately by their automated systems. My phone buzzed with her first call at 8:15 a.m. I let it go to voicemail. Bruce, this is ridiculous. The bank is threatening late fees over some computer glitch with our mortgage. I know you're mad about the party, but this affects Craig and me losing our house. Call me back immediately. The entitlement in her voice was staggering. She genuinely believed her cruelty toward Tommy should have no financial consequences for her lifestyle. Tuesday escalated the pressure. Mom's medical insurance had flagged the coverage gap when I removed myself as secondary coverage holder. Her endocrinologist appointment for diabetes management had been postponed indefinitely until insurance verification could be completed. Mom appeared at my front door unannounced at 10:30 a.m., carrying a plate of chocolate chip cookies that contained walnuts. She'd somehow forgotten that Tommy was severely allergic to tree nuts, despite my mentioning it numerous times over the past 2 years. "Honey, we need to talk," she said, inviting herself inside. "This insurance situation is getting serious." Tommy was at school, which I appreciated since his safety around the cookies was now a concern. "Mom, you can't just show up here expecting everything to go back to normal. But I don't understand why you're punishing me for Sarah's behavior. I tried to keep the peace at the restaurant by telling me to let it go when my son was being excluded and humiliated." She set the cookies on my kitchen counter, seemingly oblivious to the allergen risk they represented. "Tommy knows we love him. One incident shouldn't destroy our whole family." "Mom, have you read the group chat messages Matt showed me?" Her face flushed slightly. "Those were just private frustrations. Everyone says things they don't mean when they're stressed. You participated in discussions about Tommy not being real family for months." "I was trying to keep everyone together," she insisted. "Sometimes that means going along with things you don't fully agree with." Her justification revealed the core problem. My mother had chosen family harmony over my son's dignity repeatedly, and now expected me to prioritize her medical convenience over Tommy's emotional safety. Wednesday brought Danny's crisis to full intensity. His student loan servicer, Educational Financial Solutions, had received my revocation of co-signature status and immediately triggered their default procedures. Without my financial backing, Danny's credit score made him ineligible for the consolidation terms he'd enjoyed. He arrived at my office building during lunch, somehow having discovered my business address despite my never sharing it with family. My assistant, Jennifer, buzzed me through the intercom. "Mr. Harrison, there's a young man here claiming to be your brother. He says it's a financial emergency." Through my office window, I could see Danny pacing frantically in the reception area, running his hands through his hair and checking his phone obsessively. "Send him in, but I have a conference call in 20 minutes. Danny burst through my office door like a man fleeing a fire. "Bruce, you have to help me. They're threatening wage garnishment, and I can't afford to lose this job." "What job?" I asked pointedly. Danny had been unemployed for the past 3 months, claiming to be looking for the right opportunity. His face reddened. "Okay, I just started at a call center, but it's only temporary until I find something better." "When did you start?" "Yesterday," he admitted. "But they'll garnish my wages before I even get established." The timeline was revealing. Danny had only sought employment after losing my financial support, and now expected me to restore it before facing any real consequences for his years of irresponsibility. "Danny, I'm not co-signing any more loans. You're 26 years old. It's time to handle your own finances. But this will ruin my credit forever." "Your credit was already ruined. That's why you needed a co-signer in the first place." He slumped into the chair across from my desk, suddenly looking younger than his years. "Bruce, I know we screwed up at the party, but you can't destroy my whole future over one stupid comment." "This isn't about one comment. It's about months of planning to exclude and humiliate my son. I never said anything directly to Tommy. You participated in group chats, where family members discussed treating him like he doesn't belong." Danny stared at his hands, unable to meet my eyes. "Sarah gets everyone worked up. You know how she is. And you chose to go along with it, instead of defending a child." Thursday brought Lisa's breakdown. Little Angel's daycare had a strict payment policy requiring 48 hours notice for late payments. When my business account automatic payment failed to process, they'd immediately contacted her about alternative arrangements. Lisa called me sobbing at 6:30 in the morning, waking both Tommy and me from deep sleep. Bruce, please. I'm begging you. The twins can't miss any more daycare. I'll lose my job at the medical office if I keep calling out. Her genuine distress felt different from Sarah's entitled demands or Danny's panic. Lisa had always been the most reasonable family member, and her financial struggles were legitimate rather than self-imposed. Lisa, what exactly did you say about Tommy in those group chats? I was scared, she whispered. Sarah said if I didn't support her position, you might cut my daycare payments out of spite. I was protecting my girls. By participating in discussions about excluding my son, I thought if I went along with the chat, you'd never see it anyway. I didn't realize Matt was screenshot everything. Her logic revealed the complex web of financial intimidation my family had created. Each member felt pressured to maintain Sarah's good graces because they believed she had influence over my financial decisions. Lisa, I need to ask you something directly. Do you believe Tommy belongs in our family? A long pause filled the phone line. Yes, she finally said. I've always thought he was lucky to have you as a dad, but I was afraid to say that in the group chat. Why? Because Sarah gets vengeful when people disagree with her, and I couldn't risk losing daycare support for my daughters. Friday brought the most disturbing escalation. Dad suffered what his doctor called stress-induced heart palpitations after discovering the scope of their financial crisis. Mom called me from the emergency room at Piedmont Hospital, her voice shaking with genuine fear. Bruce, your father collapsed at work. The cardiologist says it's stress-related, but they're running tests to rule out a heart attack. Despite everything that had happened, hearing about Dad's health scare triggered my protective instincts. He was 70 years old, and I didn't want family drama to seriously harm his health. I arranged for Tommy to stay with his friend Jackson's family and drove to the hospital immediately. Dad looked pale and tired in his hospital bed, connected to heart monitors that beeped regularly. Mom sat beside him, holding his hand and looking older than I'd ever seen her. Son, Dad said weakly when I entered the room, I think we need to talk about this situation. How are you feeling? Like an old fool who let things get out of hand. Mom squeezed his hand. Frank, don't stress yourself. Patricia, I need to say this. He looked directly at me. I failed Tommy as a grandfather. I failed you as a father, and I nearly destroyed this family by going along with Sarah's nonsense. His admission caught me completely off guard. Throughout this entire crisis, Dad had remained relatively quiet while Sarah dominated family conversations. Dad, you need to focus on getting better. No, I need to fix this before it's too late. That little boy didn't deserve what happened at my birthday party. And you didn't deserve to have your generosity thrown back in your face. Mom started crying quietly. We just wanted everyone to get along. But sometimes keeping peace means letting wrong things happen. Patricia, we enabled Sarah's bad behavior for years because it was easier than confronting her, Dad said firmly. Now Bruce is protecting his son the way we should have protected him. The conversation was interrupted by Dr. Chen, Dad's cardiologist, who wanted to discuss the test results privately with family members. Mr. Harrison's cardiac function is normal, she explained in the hallway. However, his blood pressure is dangerously elevated due to stress. If he doesn't reduce the sources of stress in his life, he's at significant risk for stroke or heart attack. Mom gripped my arm. Bruce, please don't let family problems kill your father. Her words hit me like a physical blow. I'd been so focused on protecting Tommy that I hadn't considered the health implications for my elderly parents. But as I drove home that evening, I realized the situation was more complex than guilt manipulation. Dad's stress wasn't caused by my boundaries. It was caused by Sarah's escalating retaliation and the family's financial panic. The real question was whether my family would choose Tommy's well-being and honest relationships over Sarah's drama and financial convenience. Dad's health scare had created an opportunity for genuine change, but only if everyone was willing to abandon the manipulation strategies and false victim narratives they'd been using. That night, as Tommy and I discussed his fun day with Jackson's family, I felt a renewed sense of clarity about our priorities. My son's emotional safety and our authentic family bond were worth more than preserving relationships built on financial obligation and conditional acceptance. The coming weeks would reveal whether any family members were capable of choosing love over leverage. Saturday morning brought an unexpected perspective shift that would change everything. While Tommy played in our backyard, building an elaborate fort out of old cardboard boxes, I received a phone call that reminded me exactly who I was beyond my role as the family's financial supporter. "Bruce, it's Kevin." My business partner's voice crackled through the speaker. "I've got news that's going to blow your mind." Kevin Walsh had been my closest friend since college, where we'd studied computer science together at Georgia Tech. 3 years ago, we'd founded CyberGuard Solutions, specializing in cybersecurity consulting for Fortune 500 companies. "What's going on?" "Remember that proposal we submitted to Apex Technologies for their nationwide security overhaul? The one worth $2.3 million over 18 months? They accepted. Full contract, signed this morning. Bruce, we're officially playing in the big leagues now." I sat down heavily on my back porch steps, watching Tommy carefully arrange his cardboard kingdom. My family had no idea about the success I'd been building while they focused on their petty dramas and financial demands. The irony was overwhelming. For years, they'd assumed I made decent programmer money working from my home office. They'd treated my financial support as charity I could barely afford, rather than recognizing it represented a tiny fraction of my actual income. "There's more," Kevin continued. "Pacific Coast Ventures wants to meet with us next week about expanding operations to Seattle. They're talking acquisition discussion worth $15 million over 5 years. $15 million. The number felt surreal while sitting in my modest suburban backyard, watching my adopted son play contentedly with free cardboard boxes. "Kevin, I need to tell you something. My family situation has become complicated." I explained the restaurant incident, the group chat revelations, and Sarah's false CPS report. Kevin listened without interruption, occasionally making sounds of disgust at particularly cruel details. "Bruce, I've met your family at company events. I always wondered why you seemed to downplay your success around them." "What do you mean?" "Remember last year's client appreciation dinner? Your sister kept asking what you really do for work, because she couldn't believe cybersecurity was that profitable. And your brother-in-law suggested you were probably exaggerating your client contracts." I'd forgotten about those conversations, but Kevin's memory jogged my recollection of several uncomfortable moments when family members had questioned my professional achievements in front of clients and colleagues. "They never asked for details about my work," I realized aloud. "Because they didn't want to acknowledge you might be more successful than they assumed," Kevin said bluntly. "It was easier to see you as the family's financial safety net than to recognize you as an independent success." After hanging up with Kevin, I spent the afternoon reviewing our business financials with fresh perspective. CyberGuard Solutions had generated $2.3 million in revenue last year, with my personal income reaching $400,000. We employed 12 full-time consultants and maintained contracts with 17 major corporations. The money I'd been sending to my family monthly represented less than 2% of my annual income. Their financial dependence had never been about my inability to afford support. It had been about their refusal to develop independence. Tommy appeared beside me on the porch, covered in dirt and grinning widely. "Daddy, come see my castle. It has a drawbridge and everything." As I admired his architectural creativity, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Mr. Harrison, this is Cheryl from Child Protective Services. We received a report regarding your son Tommy. I'd like to schedule a home visit this week to discuss the family's concerns." The CPS investigation was moving forward, just as Sarah had planned. But now I felt something different than the panic I'd experienced when Matt first showed me the screenshots. I felt prepared. "Daddy, who was that?" "Just someone who wants to visit our house this week, to see how happy we are together." "Will they like my fort?" "They're going to love your fort." Sunday brought a surprise that illustrated the contrast between my chosen family and biological relatives. Jackson's parents, Carlos and Maria Martinez, invited Tommy and me to their family barbecue, where I experienced something I'd forgotten existed: unconditional acceptance. "Bruce, Tommy talks about you constantly," Maria said as we watched the children playing soccer in their backyard. "Jackson adores having him as a friend." "He's a special kid," I replied. "You're a wonderful father," Carlos added. "Tommy is confident, kind, and secure. That doesn't happen by accident." Their validation felt more meaningful than years of grudging tolerance from my biological family. The Martinez family had embraced Tommy immediately, never questioning his place in our lives or treating our relationship as temporary or conditional. "We'd love to have Tommy stay here anytime you need support," Maria offered. "Carlos and I believe children should feel welcomed everywhere they go." As Tommy helped Jackson's grandmother with her garden, laughing as she taught him to identify different vegetable plants, I realized he was experiencing genuine extended family love with people who shared no biological connection to either of us. Monday morning brought the CPS home visit I'd been dreading since Sarah's false report. Cheryl Morrison arrived at 10 a.m. sharp, a middle-aged African-American woman with kind eyes and professional demeanor. "Mr. Harrison, thank you for accommodating this visit. I want to assure you that we take all reports seriously, but we also recognize that family disputes can sometimes motivate false claims." Her directness surprised me. "You're aware this might be retaliation?" In my 15 years doing this job, I've learned to recognize certain patterns. A sudden report immediately following financial disputes often indicates non-genuine concerns. Tommy greeted Cheryl politely, offering to show her his room and his recent school projects. As she interviewed him privately, I prepared myself for potential challenges to our family stability. 20 minutes later, Cheryl returned to the kitchen where I waited nervously. "Mr. Harrison, Tommy is one of the most well-adjusted children I've encountered. He speaks confidently about your relationship, feels secure in his home environment, and clearly trusts you completely. What happens next?" "I'll be filing a report indicating no credible concerns about Tommy's welfare or your parenting capacity. However, I do want to warn you that the family member who made this report suggested she might pursue grandparent visitation rights through family court. Is that possible?" Georgia law allows grandparent visitation petitions, but they must prove that visitation serves the child's best interests and that you're unreasonably denying access. Based on what I've seen today and the circumstances surrounding this report, I doubt any court would find in their favor. After Cheryl left with promises to close the investigation quickly, I felt a profound sense of validation. The professional whose job was protecting children had immediately recognized the stability and love in our home. That afternoon, I made a decision that felt both terrifying and liberating. I called my attorney, Patricia Wells, and scheduled an appointment to discuss proactive legal protection for Tommy and myself. "Patricia, I want to explore relocating to Seattle for business expansion. What would that mean for any potential custody challenges from my family?" "Relocation with proper notice and legitimate business reasons is generally protected, especially when you're the sole legal parent," she explained. "However, if your parents file for grandparent visitation, leaving the state could complicate things. What if I can prove they've been actively harmful to my son's emotional well-being? Documentation is everything. Do you have evidence of their behavior?" I thought about Matt's screenshots, the false CPS report, and the systematic exclusion Tommy had experienced. Yes, I have extensive documentation. That evening, as Tommy and I worked together on his volcano science project, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Complete freedom to prioritize our happiness without guilt or obligation to people who'd never truly accepted us. My family's financial panic was revealing their true priorities, while my business success was opening doors to new possibilities. For the first time since this crisis began, I felt powerful rather than defensive. Tommy looked up from his papier-mâché volcano, his face serious. "Daddy, are we really going to move to Seattle? Would you like to? Will Jackson's family visit us there?" "I'm sure they would love to visit." "Then yes, adventures sound fun." His excitement confirmed what I already knew. Tommy's happiness didn't depend on maintaining relationships with people who questioned his worth. It depended on feeling loved, secure, and free to grow in an environment of genuine acceptance. The week had shown me that my family's financial desperation was matched by their emotional poverty, while my carefully built life with Tommy represented the kind of wealth that actually mattered. Tuesday morning brought an unexpected development that would change the entire dynamic of our family crisis. My attorney, Patricia Wells, called with news that shifted the power balance completely in our favor. "Bruce, I've been researching your family's legal threats, and I think it's time for us to go on the offensive instead of remaining defensive. What do you mean? Georgia has strong laws against filing false reports with Child Protective Services. Your sister's documented lies to CPS constitute a misdemeanor offense. Additionally, if we can prove coordination between family members to harass you through legal systems, we can pursue restraining orders. The possibility of my family facing legal consequences for their behavior had never occurred to me. I'd been so focused on protecting Tommy that I hadn't considered we might have grounds for prosecution. What would you recommend? Schedule a family meeting with all parties present, their legal counsel if they choose, and myself as witness. Present them with documented evidence of their harassment, false reporting, and manipulation attempts. Give them one opportunity to resolve this civilly before we pursue legal remedies. The strategy felt risky, but necessary. My family's escalating tactics required a definitive response that would either restore healthy boundaries or end relationships permanently. Patricia, I want to include one additional element. I'm prepared to offer financial settlement for any family member willing to sign a no-contact agreement regarding Tommy. Explain what you're thinking. Pay off Sarah's mortgage in exchange for permanent no contact. Cover Mom's medical expenses for 6 months if she agrees to supervised visitation only. Resolve Danny's student loans if he completes addiction counseling and maintains steady employment. You're offering significant money for them to leave you alone? I'm offering them financial security in exchange for Tommy's emotional security. If they choose money over relationship, at least the choice will be explicit. Wednesday afternoon, I sent formal invitations through my attorney's office for a family meeting scheduled at Patricia's law firm conference room. The message was brief and professional. Family meeting to resolve outstanding disputes and establish future boundaries. Legal counsel, welcome. The responses revealed each family member's current desperation level. Dad called within an hour. Son, we'll be there. Your mother and I want to fix this situation. Lisa texted. Bruce, I hope we can work things out. I miss Tommy. Danny sent a long email apologizing for his mistakes and promising to do better. Sarah's response came through her own attorney. My clients will attend but reserve all legal rights regarding grandparent visitation and Mr. Harrison's pattern of financial manipulation. Her threat confirmed that she was still planning legal action rather than genuine reconciliation. Thursday evening, I sat Tommy down for the most important conversation we'd had since the adoption was finalized. Buddy, tomorrow we're going to meet with our family to talk about how we want them to be part of our lives going forward. Will Aunt Sarah apologize for being mean about the cake? I don't know. But whatever happens, I want you to remember that you get to choose who you spend time with as you grow up. Even family? Especially family. Just because someone is related to us doesn't mean they get to treat us badly. Tommy considered this seriously. What if some of them want to be nice now? Then we'll see if they can prove they've really changed by how they act, not just what they say. Friday afternoon at 2 p.m., we gathered in Patricia Wells' conference room at Morrison, Wells and Associates downtown. The setting was intentionally formal, designed to emphasize the seriousness of our situation. Dad and Mom arrived together, both looking older and more fragile than I remembered. Dad's recent health scare had clearly affected him, but he sat straighter when he saw Tommy enter the room holding my hand confidently. Lisa came alone, having arranged childcare for her twins. She smiled tentatively at Tommy, who waved back politely, but stayed close to me. Danny appeared nervous but cleaned up, wearing a button-down shirt I'd never seen before. He'd apparently started taking our crisis seriously enough to improve his appearance. Sarah and Craig arrived with their attorney, Jennifer Chen, a sharp-faced woman in an expensive suit who immediately began taking notes. Sarah's expression remained defiant, while Craig looked uncomfortable being involved in formal legal proceedings. Matt had requested permission to attend as a witness since he'd been the one to expose the group chat conspiracies. His presence seemed to make several family members nervous. Patricia began with a presentation of documented evidence that stunned everyone except Matt and myself. She'd prepared a comprehensive timeline of harassment, including screenshots of group chat messages, records of false CPS reporting, evidence of coordinated manipulation attempts, and documentation of threats regarding legal action. Ladies and gentlemen, Patricia announced, What we have here is a clear pattern of harassment directed at Mr. Harrison and his son in retaliation for his setting financial boundaries. Under Georgia law, several of these actions constitute criminal misdemeanors. Sarah's attorney whispered urgently in her client's ear, but Sarah's expression remained stubborn. Furthermore, Patricia continued, filing false reports with Child Protective Services carries penalties including fines up to $1,000 and potential jail time. We have documented evidence that Mrs. Craig fabricated concerns about child welfare solely to pressure Mr. Harrison into resuming financial support. That's not true, Sarah burst out. I was genuinely worried about Tommy's stability. Patricia calmly read from printed CPS interview transcripts. Mrs. Craig admitted to the investigating social worker that her primary concern was Mr. Harrison's sudden change in family relationships and that she believed financial stress might be affecting his parenting. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Sarah had essentially confessed that her CPS report was motivated by financial concerns rather than child welfare. "What do you want from us?" Dad asked quietly. I stood up, holding Tommy's hand. "I want acknowledgement that Tommy is my son and deserves the same respect as any other family member. I want apologies for the pain you've caused him. And I want guarantees that this harassment will stop immediately." "And if we provide those things?" Mom asked hopefully. "Then we rebuild relationships slowly, with clear boundaries and supervised contact until trust is restored." Sarah laughed bitterly. "So we have to earn the right to see our own family?" "Sarah," I said firmly, "you forfeited your automatic access to my son when you publicly humiliated him and then tried to use Child Protective Services as a weapon against us. He's not your real son anyway." The conference room erupted. Dad shouted Sarah, "That's enough," while Mom started crying. Lisa covered her face with her hands, and Danny stared at his sister in horror. Tommy looked up at me calmly. "Daddy, she's still being mean." "Yes, buddy. Some people don't know how to stop being mean, even when it hurts them." Patricia regained control of the meeting. "Mrs. Craig, your statement has been recorded and will be included in our documentation. Mr. Harrison, please present your final offer." I'd prepared 3 different settlement options, depending on each family member's willingness to change. For Sarah and Craig, I will pay off your entire mortgage balance of $47,000 in exchange for a legal no-contact agreement. You will have no further communication with Tommy or myself, and you will cease all legal actions. Sarah's eyes widened. Her mortgage payoff would free her from financial stress while permanently removing her from our lives. For Mom and Dad, I will cover all medical expenses and provide supplemental retirement income for 6 months while you attend family counseling. After successful counseling completion, you'll have supervised visitation with Tommy once monthly. For Danny, I will resolve your student loan debt of $18,000 if you complete addiction counseling and maintain steady employment for 6 months. Your relationship with Tommy resumes only after demonstrating consistent personal responsibility. For Lisa, I will cover daycare expenses for 3 months while you decide whether you can accept Tommy as a full family member. If yes, our relationship continues normally. If no, we end contact permanently but amicably. The room was silent as everyone processed their options. Each offer provided significant financial relief in exchange for either behavioral change or permanent separation. "What about grandparent rights?" Sarah's attorney asked. "Any family member who accepts financial settlement waives all future legal claims, including grandparent visitation," Patricia replied. "However, family members who choose ongoing relationship will have reasonable access through proper channels." Dad spoke first. "Bruce, I accept counseling and supervised visitation. I want to learn how to be the grandfather Tommy deserves." Mom nodded tearfully. "I've been a coward about confronting bad behavior. I want to change that." Lisa raised her hand tentatively. "I don't need the daycare money. Tommy is my nephew, period. I should have defended him from the beginning." Danny cleared his throat. "I'll take the counseling deal. I need help getting my life together anyway." All eyes turned to Sarah and Craig. They huddled with their attorney for several minutes before Sarah stood up angrily. "This is blackmail. You're trying to buy your way out of family obligations." "Sarah," I said calmly, I'm offering you financial freedom in exchange for leaving us alone. That's exactly what you've always wanted. What I want is for you to stop pretending that adopted kid is the same as real family." Craig tugged his wife's sleeve. "Sarah, maybe we should take the deal." "Absolutely not. We'll see you in family court for grandparent rights." She stormed out with Craig reluctantly following, their attorney gathering papers quickly. Patricia smiled grimly. "Mr. Harrison, I believe we just made our harassment case significantly stronger." The remaining family members spent an additional hour discussing specific terms for rebuilding relationships. Dad and Mom seemed genuinely committed to change, while Lisa's immediate acceptance of Tommy felt authentic. Danny's situation required more careful monitoring, but his willingness to address underlying problems suggested potential for growth. As we prepared to leave, Tommy approached his grandfather tentatively. "Grandpa Frank, will you really learn how to be nice to me?" Dad knelt down stiffly, his eyes filling with tears. "Tommy, I promise to spend every day trying to be the grandfather you deserve. I'm sorry I failed you before. It's okay. Daddy says people can change if they really want to." Watching this interaction, I felt the first genuine hope I'd experienced since this crisis began. Some family relationships could be salvaged through honest effort and accountability. Others would need to end for everyone's well-being. But for the first time in weeks, Tommy and I were moving forward from a position of strength rather than defensive protection. 3 months later, our life had transformed in ways I couldn't have imagined during those dark days following Dad's birthday party. The legal battles were resolved, relationships had been rebuilt on healthier foundations, and Tommy was thriving in an environment of genuine acceptance and love. The most significant change was geographical. Kevin and I had accepted the acquisition offer from Pacific Coast Ventures, and CyberGuard Solutions was now operating as their premier cybersecurity division with offices in Atlanta and Seattle. I'd chosen to relocate our primary operations to Seattle, giving Tommy and me a fresh start 3,000 miles away from family drama. Our new home in Bellevue overlooked Lake Washington, with mountain views that took Tommy's breath away every morning. He'd adapted to his new school, Eastgate Elementary, with remarkable resilience, making friends quickly and excelling in advanced math and science programs. "Daddy, Jackson's family is coming to visit next month," Tommy announced as he burst through our front door after school. The Martinez family had become our chosen extended family, with Carlos, Maria, and Jackson planning their first trip to Seattle for spring break. "That's wonderful, buddy. We'll have to show them Pike Place Market and the Space Needle, and my new fort in the backyard." Tommy's enthusiasm for life had returned completely. The confidence that had been shaken by my family's rejection had been restored through positive relationships and experiences that affirmed his value exactly as he was. The legal resolution with my family had unfolded exactly as Patricia predicted. Sarah and Craig had attempted to file for grandparent visitation rights, but their case was dismissed when the judge reviewed evidence of their harassment and false CPS reporting. The documented group chat messages, combined with Sarah's recorded statements during our family meeting, had convinced the court that contact with them was not in Tommy's best interests. Sarah had ultimately accepted the mortgage payoff settlement, but only after facing potential criminal charges for filing false reports. She and Craig had moved to Florida to live with his parents, severing contact with our entire family permanently. Their departure had actually improved family dynamics for everyone else. Dad had embraced family counseling with surprising enthusiasm. Dr. Michelle Roberts, our therapist in Atlanta, had helped him understand how his passive enabling of Sarah's behavior had contributed to toxic family patterns. He now called Tommy every Sunday evening for video chats, sharing stories about his own childhood and asking genuine questions about Tommy's interests and experiences. "Grandpa Frank taught me how to play chess online," Tommy had told me proudly after their last conversation. "He says I'm getting really good at thinking ahead." Mom's transformation had been equally remarkable. Individual therapy had helped her address her lifelong pattern of avoiding conflict at the expense of protecting vulnerable family members. She'd started volunteering at a local adoption support group, using her experience to help other grandparents learn how to embrace adopted grandchildren unconditionally. "Bruce, I want you to know how proud I am of the father you've become," she'd told me during our last phone call. Tommy is lucky to have someone who fought for him the way you did. Danny had exceeded all expectations. He'd completed addiction counseling, maintained steady employment at a software development company, and had even started dating someone he'd met in group therapy. His relationship with Tommy had evolved into something genuinely warm, with Uncle Danny sending care packages filled with Seattle-themed gifts and funny postcards. "Tommy, your Uncle Danny wants to visit this summer if that's okay with you," I'd mentioned the previous week. "Can he teach me how to code like you and him do?" "I'm sure he'd love to." Lisa had become our strongest family ally. She'd immediately accepted our move to Seattle and had started planning a summer vacation to visit us with her twins. Her genuine remorse about the group chat situation had led to honest conversations about family loyalty versus moral courage that had strengthened our relationship considerably. But the most meaningful changes were happening in Tommy's daily life. His new friend group at Eastgate Elementary included children from diverse family structures, single parents, same-sex couples, blended families, and other adoptive families. For the first time, Tommy felt completely normal in his family configuration. His teacher, Mrs. Patterson, had called me the previous month with feedback that filled my heart with pride. "Mr. Harrison, Tommy shows remarkable emotional intelligence for his age. He's naturally inclusive with new students and seems to have a special talent for helping children who feel different or left out." The qualities that my biological family had seen as deficits, Tommy's difference and adopted status, had actually become sources of strength and empathy that enriched his social relationships. My business success had continued expanding beyond my expectations. The Seattle cybersecurity market was booming, and our client base had grown to include major tech companies, healthcare systems, and financial institutions. The acquisition had provided financial security that made my family's previous dependence seem almost trivial in retrospect. But more importantly, professional success had given me the confidence to prioritize Tommy's well-being over family expectations without guilt or second-guessing. I'd learned that protecting my son from emotional harm was not selfish. It was essential parenting. Kevin had become like an uncle to Tommy, regularly joining us for weekend hiking trips in the Cascade Mountains. His own children, ages 7 and 9, had embraced Tommy as an instant cousin, creating a professional family network that felt more authentic than many biological relationships I'd experienced. "Uncle Kevin, look what I found," Tommy shouted from ahead on the trail, holding up an interesting piece of granite with quartz crystals embedded throughout. "That's a keeper, buddy. We'll add it to your rock collection when we get home." Watching Tommy explore nature with enthusiasm and confidence, surrounded by adults who celebrated his curiosity rather than questioning his place in their lives, reminded me daily that we'd made the right choice in prioritizing authentic relationships over obligatory ones. The most healing moment had come 2 weeks ago, when Tommy and I visited the Seattle Center for a children's adoption awareness event. Tommy had volunteered to speak about his experience, wanting to help other children understand that adoption creates real families built on love rather than biology. Standing at the podium in front of 100 people, my 8-year-old son had spoken with wisdom that amazed the audience. "Some people think adopted kids aren't as good as regular kids, but that's not true. My daddy chose me special, and I choose him back every day. That makes us even more family than people who just got born to each other." The standing ovation had brought tears to my eyes, but Tommy's confident smile had filled me with profound gratitude for the journey that brought us to this moment of strength and clarity. That evening, as we sat on our deck overlooking Lake Washington, watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of gold and purple, Tommy asked me a question that revealed how much he'd grown. "Daddy, do you think Aunt Sarah will ever learn to be nicer?" "I don't know, buddy. Some people choose to hold on to anger instead of learning to love better. I hope she learns someday. But I'm glad we don't have to wait for her to be happy." His mature perspective on forgiveness without enabling bad behavior showed me that our difficult experience had taught him valuable lessons about boundaries, self-worth, and the difference between unconditional love and unconditional tolerance. As I tucked him into bed that night, Tommy offered his own life lesson that perfectly captured what we'd learned together. "Daddy, I think family is like a garden. You have to plant good seeds, water them with love, and pull out the weeds that try to hurt the flowers." His metaphor was profound. We'd pulled out the toxic relationships that threatened our growth, nurtured the connections that helped us flourish, and planted ourselves in new soil where we could bloom fully. Looking back on that devastating birthday lunch 6 months ago, I realized that Sarah's cruelty had actually been a gift in disguise. Her public rejection of Tommy had forced me to choose between my son's emotional safety and family tradition. Choosing Tommy had led us to this life of authentic relationships, professional fulfillment, and genuine happiness. The pain of losing some family relationships had been real, but the joy of keeping the ones worth preserving while building new chosen family connections had been transformative. Tommy was thriving academically, socially, and emotionally. He felt secure in his identity as my son, and confident in his place in our carefully chosen community. The questions about belonging that had haunted him after the restaurant incident had been replaced by certainty about his value and purpose. I'd learned that protecting the people we love sometimes requires disappointing the people we're related to. That lesson had made me a better father and a stronger person. Our story wasn't about blood versus choice, or biological family versus adopted family. It was about the courage to demand respect for the people we love and the wisdom to build relationships on foundations of mutual care rather than obligation or convenience. Every morning when Tommy rushed to the kitchen excited about his day, every evening when he shared stories about friends who accepted him completely, and every weekend when he spoke proudly about my dad Bruce to new people we met, I felt grateful for that painful birthday lunch that had forced us to choose love over loyalty. We'd chosen well. Have you ever had to choose between protecting someone you love and keeping peace with family members? Family relationships can be incredibly complex, especially when children are involved and different people have different ideas about what family means. Tommy and I discovered that real family is built on love, respect, and choice rather than just biology or tradition. What do you think makes a family truly strong? Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with relatives to protect yourself or someone you care about? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and remember that sometimes the most loving thing we can do is refuse to accept treatment that hurts the people we're responsible for protecting. If this story touched your heart or reminded you of your own experiences with family challenges, please give it a thumbs up and share it with others who might need to hear Tommy's message about chosen family and unconditional love. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories about courage, resilience, and the power of standing up for what's right. Thank you for joining Tommy and me on this journey from heartbreak to healing. Remember that you deserve relationships that celebrate who you are rather than questioning whether you belong. Keep choosing love, keep protecting the vulnerable, and keep building the family that your heart knows you deserve.